Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. I want to start this podcast talking about the last video that I released, which was the giveaway video that I believe was titled Lots of Bad News and Some Good News, or something like that. Really, it was sort of equal parts good news and bad news, and ultimately it winds up being good news because things work out. But interestingly, that video got more dislikes than any video I have made in at least 2 years. That's how far back I went and looked at videos and looked at the number of dislikes. And there's a time that would have bothered me, that just getting that quantity of dislikes, especially when I'm doing something like a giveaway. And it would have bothered me to the point that I would have probably gone full out Eric Cartman, been like, screw you guys, I'm going home. But instead, now I just sort of laugh at it. I think a big part of it is, and I talk about this pretty regularly, Stoicism. And that is actually one of the reasons why I did that video. I didn't want to be all up in everybody's face about Stoicism, but I wanted to show that there is good and there is bad, and whether it's good or bad largely depends on our perspective. And I think it was Shakespeare that said something to the effect of, things are neither good nor bad, but it is our thinking that makes them so. And I think some people get a little bit confused about Stoicism. They think that it means not being emotional, but instead it's really about not letting your behavior be driven by emotions. And I think that's especially important for those of us who are on I don't want to use the word restrictive, but I'm going to, a restrictive way of eating, that being keto or carnivore or low carb, some variation of low carb. There are things that we avoid, and I know personally I've always been sort of an emotional eater. If I'm happy, I eat. If I'm sad, I eat. I guess I just ate a lot back when I was heavy. But not being controlled by your emotions, by your desires, by whether it's a craving that you have, or whether it's you're feeling some self-pity because you can't eat a certain thing that you want to eat. So I do feel that Stoicism ties in really well, and that's one of the reasons I talk about it. It's not a religion, it's a philosophy. It doesn't mean not being emotional, it just means not being controlled by your emotions. And I think especially it's about not letting things bother you. And I used to let a lot of things bother me. This particular PC incident that I had last week, I would have had an absolute thermonuclear meltdown in the past, but now I just kind of rolled with it. I don't think I even used any profanity, which, is kind of a new thing for me. I also felt that by sharing that experience, it's a reminder that we all need to not be quite so reliant and trusting in technology, to make sure that we have backups. Use a cloud backup or an external drive. Think about if you lost everything that's on your PC. What would you pay to get it back? And honestly, cloud backup, it doesn't cost a whole lot. I think a lot of them are even free. So I highly, highly recommend that. It also reminded me of a quote, and I don't know who said it first, but it's something to the effect of, you should have 3 people in your life that are friends or that you thoroughly trust: a butcher, a mechanic, and a lawyer. I would also add to that probably somebody with some technical knowledge, an IT person. And I used to be an IT person many, many years ago. And I got a number of comments from you, my viewers, who are also IT folks. And tell me if this is true or not for you, because it certainly was for me. When you're an IT person, you do not want people to know that you are an IT person, because suddenly you become everybody's tech support. Family, friends, neighbors, anybody that finds out you're an IT person, and you are suddenly now They think that they're entitled to free tech support from you. So the further I got away from being the IT guy, the easier it got for me to distance myself from being universal tech support for everyone that knows me. Anyhow, I'm pretty well covered on that list. I've got a mechanic that I trust. I've got a lawyer that I trust. I'm already the tech guy, but I need to get a butcher. I need to befriend a butcher. That's definitely on my to-do list for 2024. All right, I'm going to do one more little Stoic thing here because it does also kind of relate back to Friday's video and getting, certain not so pleasant comments sometimes on YouTube. Here is the Daily Stoic quote from, it would have been Friday, the day that I released that video. So this is a quote from Epictetus. Keep in mind that it isn't the one who has it in for you and takes a swipe at you that harms you, but rather the harm comes from your own belief about the abuse. When someone arouses your anger, know that it's really your opinion fueling it. Instead, make it your first response not to be carried away by such impressions, for with time and distance, self-mastery is more easily achieved. What I love about that quote is that it really says that we can't be bothered by something or someone unless we allow ourselves to be bothered, unless we empower that person or that situation to control our emotions. So I really like that. Anyhow, that's enough Stoicism for today. Another thing I talked about briefly in last Friday's video was that I was working on a 3-day recipe. Now, I love to cook. For me, to spend 3 days making a dish, if it's wonderful, is completely worth it. I know that's not the case for everybody. And lately I've been trying to make my recipes a little less reliant on specialty ingredients or specialty appliances or kitchen gadgets. Early on this channel, I was really into that. I think maybe a little bit of it was showing off a bit. Maybe my ego required that I, show you some ingredient that you weren't aware of, and you got to have this in your pantry, or here's another little gadget that you ought to have. But lately I've been trying to make sure that my recipes are a little bit more accessible, and that if it is going to be high effort or time consuming, that it definitely be worth your while. And this one that I worked on last week, it was a twice braised and then seared pork belly, and it's good. It's darn good. But I want to see if I can simplify it a little bit more. It was a recipe that I modified fairly heavily and keto-fied, originally from Emeril Lagasse. It was some sort of a fusion Asian New Orleans pork belly type thing. So if I can simplify that a little bit more, that recipe will definitely be coming. Additionally, one of the things that's going on in my life right now is Courtney, I had mentioned this before, my daughter Courtney bought a house. And this place is a serious fixer-upper. There's a lot of work that needs doing on it. And Terry, my wife, and I have been doing a lot on it so far from, she's been mainly doing the painting, Terry has. I patched some drywall, I've done some electrical work in there, and there's going to be a lot of yard work and exterior type stuff that needs doing. And I'm happy to do it. I am, and Terry loves doing it. Maybe I guess I'm not happy to do it, but I'm not sad about doing it. It's not something I desperately look forward to. It would be a lot easier if Courtney lived closer. She's about a 40-minute drive away each direction. So it's longer than I think pretty much any commute I have ever had for work in my work history. So I'm working on that, which means I'm trying to really optimize my time in the kitchen as well. And to that end, I've mapped out my next 3 cooking videos, and the plan is to make them basically all this week, or at least film them all this week. Perhaps not the intro and outro, I'm not sure, but at least get the raw footage filmed on that. That way I want to make sure that I can continue to release videos weekly. I really do want to release cooking videos weekly. I don't throw in these giveaways because I'm lazy. I throw them in because I tried everything I could to get a video done, and it just didn't come together. But maybe if I get a decent backlog of cooking videos and just try and film everything I do, I won't get in that situation, and then the giveaways will just be a bonus video rather than a replacement video on any given week, and then maybe it won't get so many dislikes. I don't know. We'll see. One of the things that we're probably going to wind up doing at Courtney's place is building a little bit of a studio for her down in her basement. It's mostly unfinished right now. The previous owner framed it, but didn't do any sort of insulation or electrical or anything like that. And it's pretty rugged looking down there. But Courtney wants to get a fitness and health channel going of her own, and I thought maybe we could get something set up down in her basement that would allow her to do that. So Dad can help out. He can bring his YouTube knowledge and help her get her channel going. It'll probably be summer, maybe even late summer, before she has that fully up and going. But once it is up and going, I will let all of you know, because I know there are a number of Courtney fans there, and it will be fitness, and she's very creative as well. She likes doing things like making her own soap and making her own shampoo and all kinds of things like that. And she's really kind of inching, I think, closer and closer to keto, sometimes even carnivore. So we may see some good tie-ins with this channel as well. The last thing I'm going to talk about is a topic from a couple podcasts ago where I talked about it being the 6th anniversary of my worst year ever. And there were some things that showed up in my OneDrive memories from today where I saw, oh wow, this particular week was really, really bad. First, there was a number of you that responded, wow, that was a terrible year. And that was just one week. There were more weeks like that throughout the year. But I also got so many comments from people saying, I'm so sorry that you went through that. Every time I say that word, sorry, I think I have a Canadian accent. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. And I do appreciate the kind words and the sympathy and the empathy. But the reason I shared that story was to show that sometimes the best things come out of some of the worst things. Similar to that passage on Stoicism earlier. Had those things not occurred to me, I wouldn't have made the lifestyle change that I did. I wouldn't have adopted a keto way of eating. I wouldn't have created this channel. I might be dead by now, just based on kind of the way my life was going. I was not the picture of health. And it was these events, this sequence of pretty awful things, awful at the time, in retrospective, wonderful things that occurred to me that brought me to where I am. And hopefully as this year goes on and I share some other positive and, let's not call them negative, transformative events that have occurred to me in the past that brought me to here, I hope that it creates a perspective for all of you on your own lives and your own experiences, that very often some of these things, these challenges that we go through are there to make us stronger and to give us a new direction in life. So I guess this podcast wound up being a little bit more philosophical than it was keto related, but you know, you never know what's going to come out of my mouth. Even sometimes I don't know. But I do know one thing that always comes out of my mouth, and that's at the end of every video when I tell you how much I appreciate all of you and say, thanks for watching.